Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn, that's professional kickboxer, the mechanic, Brandon Catino. This week, another action-packed episode 105. Of course, we're going to be talking about the UFC merger with WWE, what that means. A lot of people are talking about what that means for WWE. We're going to talk about what that means for the UFC going forward. Plus, we're going to take a deep dive. The mechanic mentioned it last week. Benson Henderson retired. Where does he rank all time? A lot of people don't really show him the love that I think he deserves. So we'll talk about Benson Henderson. And, of course, we'll give our reaction to Bellator 293. Before all that, head over to FightersFirst.shop. Get the merch. Show some love. Let our apparel be a part of your story. Of course, you can get the mechanic collection before he jumps back in the ring later this year. Of course, he said on kickboxing, not Art of MMA, that, fight news will be coming soon. So we'll look forward to that. But get the mechanic collection. Of course, get the Art of MMA collection. Brandon's rocking the old school Bruce Lee shirt. Guess what? That's back in the shop as well. So go ahead and get that. FightersFirst.shop. Mechanic Brandon Catino, how are you feeling today, sir?
Doing well, man. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing good, man. Getting used to this new schedule of you getting me up early on Wednesday mornings to record Art of MMA so we can get it out in the afternoon for everyone. But it's been good. Everything's good. I'm excited about some of the news going on. I'll let y'all a little backstage secret. Brandon's not super excited about this topic, but we're going to go ahead and kick it off. This week, announced right after WrestleMania, WME Endeavor, of course, the parent company of UFC, has purchased a 51% stake in WWE. They now are the main owners. Ari Emanuel and the UFC are now the main owners of WWE. Right off the bat, Brandon, it means a couple things. One, Vince McMahon's still in charge of WWE. Much like when Endeavor bought UFC, they left Dana in charge. They kind of wanted the ship to keep on moving so they could just keep on making money. A few business decisions backstage here and there, but most of it is still Dana and still the crew that's always run it, Sean Shelby, all those guys, Hunter Campbell. And then on the other side of things, he's doing the same thing. He put Vince basically back in charge of a lot of stuff with WWE. A lot of fans aren't happy about that. You can see it with just this, Monday after Mania that people were kind of crapping on because it wasn't what it was. But a lot of people are going to talk about what that means for WWE going forward. But we're a mixed martial arts show, so I want to take a look what that means for the UFC. Right off the bat, Brandon, there's a few things that pop in my head, and I'll get your thoughts on it. One, over the last year, more so than I think I've heard in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of fight fixing talk. We talked about it on the show not too long ago with a couple fights that had really questionable MMA judging. I think, for one, I'd like to get your opinion how now that they're going to merge UFC and WWE into a globally traded company. They're not going to mix business, but they're going to merge them into a globally traded company. So it's now a $21.4 billion empire that's basically going to take over the world television-wise and stuff like that. My first question for you is, does having WWE under the portfolio, obviously is scripted content, obviously something that is predetermined, does that hurt the UFC as far as their reputation goes as a legitimate sport?
To me, no, it doesn't. Like, I know people will think about it because saying you had the whole thing with the whole James Krause situation, especially with sports betting and everything like that. But to me, no, it's just like, again, like Endeavor also used to own like properties, of like TV shows and everything like that. Like, that doesn't go into effect. Like, TV shows are scripted. Nobody thinks much of it, but because it's pro wrestling or sports entertainment, and people want to be like, oh, fight fisting. It's like, what's the difference? They're the same thing. So if you didn't have anything before when Endeavor was hanging out with actors in movies or TV shows, then I don't see there being a problem with this.
I find it funny because you go back 7 years. I think it's been like 7 years now since Endeavor bought UFC, and when you looked at that deal, funny enough, one of the companies that was in talks for buying the UFC back then was WWE. Like, Vince McMahon was thinking about buying the UFC when it was for sale back then. And now here we go, fast forward 7 years, and now it's the other way around. Now that Vince is looking for an exit and kind of whatever. He said he wanted to retire, and Ari said, no, I need you to stay around. Of course, if people want to know behind the scenes, him and Vince McMahon, Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon go back 30 years. They've been buddy for 30 years. Him selling to Ari is probably the best case scenario for WWE because Vince stays in control. The product stays pretty much what it is. And that's it. They just look, Ari Emanuel and them just want to make money off this. They want to make money off the global brand that is WWE. I think from a UFC standpoint, I think I don't know if I want to call them trolls. They're not quite trolls. People have opinions. People have rights to opinions. But the opinions will get louder. The chirping will get louder. I think when there's a questionable fight coming, if somebody doesn't like a decision, as we've seen many times, I can talk about when we talk about Bellator later in the Kat Zingano situation. Like, there's a lot of people that are going to question decisions, and now they're going to be like, well, was that scripted? And I think just having that noise is enough to kind of dampen the UFC's shine a little bit. I don't know if it will ever affect Dana White because we know for a fact that Dana has modeled his business a lot after Vince McMahon in WWE. He said it many times. He thinks Vince is a genius. Back in the day when they were first kind of getting going, he definitely picked Vince's brain quite a bit on how to market the brand. I think what this does is increase the exposure of UFC. I think WWE audiences, I think most wrestling fans like MMA, but I don't think all MMA fans like wrestling. I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yeah, I mean, or it's just that they used to be wrestling fans when they were growing up as a kid, and now they're not, but they still know what it is.
Yeah, I think they look down on it though, and I think in a time where UFC is already under fire for a lot of stuff that Dana's been doing, a lot of the actions from what we talked about with Colby Covington and John Anik last week, obviously all the stuff that Conor gets into, the Francis Ngannou contract situations. They've been kind of under the gun quite a bit lately, and I think this kind of distracts people from those stories. The James Krause situation you talked about, which is still a big deal, by the way. That's still under a federal investigation from the FBI and investigating the gambling and possibly fight fixing. Whether Dana had anything to do with that, I doubt it. I think it was just one of those things where if, and I say allegedly, if James Krause did actually fix some of these fights or leak information so they can make some money with the bookies, I think that's just pretty much a solo situation. I don't think it's not Pride, right, Brandon? It's not like the stuff like with Pride where they were fixing all the fights and Rampage would go on later to tell people all about those stories. But I do think it hurts the credibility a little bit as far as you have a legitimate sport that's worked 20 plus years to maintain real athletic competition. And I'm saying this as a wrestling fan. We know wrestling's fake. We know wrestling is scripted, real athletes, real injuries, but it's predetermined. And when you have something like that, it's going to grow more noise. I think people are going to talk, and that's just going to probably piss Dana off more because, Dana gets real in his feelings about certain things and goes on attacks against trolls and stuff like that. So the other question I have for you is does that mean?
This is what I just don't understand. So remember, this isn't the UFC bought WWE. It's Endeavor who owns the UFC, but also owns.
But it is a merger.
But so this is why I want to know. So tell me, what's the difference between Endeavor owning this company and everything like that, and then getting the WWE, and everybody's all about freaking out about this. But then you go over to Bellator. Who owns Bellator?
Viacom.
Exactly. What does Viacom do? What do they own?
Everything.
Paramount, movies, TV shows, they have one network, but nobody's bringing that up for them. So why would they bring it up then for the UFC? Doesn't make any sense. They're the same thing.
It's okay. So yes, it is the same, but no, it's not, because WWE has a global brand that is bigger and has a reputation. I mean, wrestling in general. You're talking about an entire industry. I'm just saying, been looked at with certain light.
We're talking about scripted sports entertainment.
I get it.
Right? But we're talking about Viacom that owns CBS, right? That has But which you know, they have Showtime, everything like that. They got Showtime Studios, CBS Studios, all this stuff. They make all these TV shows, right? So I'm saying, so they're in scripted shows, but they own, right? They own Bellator, which does real fights, but nobody brings up about like, oh, what if this is what if this scripted that? Like, it doesn't happen. So why would it happen now for this? That's all where I'm just trying to come from. Like, people want to bring that up, but it's like, but if it's not happening for them, which we know Viacom, you know, is in the TV world, you know, own studios and everything like that, but nobody brings it up for them.
I think the difference is definitely just the narrative that is professional wrestling. You know, people look at it in a certain light. I think Chris Van Vliet said it best the other day when somebody was questioning why he's such a big wrestling fan and that wrestling is fake. And he's like, well, guess what? The Avengers didn't really save the world either. Like, it's all a movie, it's all a script, it's all a TV show and entertainment. Like, you love watching the Avengers, you love watching all these superhero comic movies, and you love watching, you know, these deep drama movies and everything else like that. Well, that's wrestling. It's drama, it's action, it's all that stuff. But it's a show. It is a show, and it's a performance. And if you criticize that because you're a real fight fan, quote unquote, then I think you're going to have your feelings and your opinions on it, whether, you know, it's the same as Viacom or is the same as all these other promotions. I mean, you look at PFL, and Dom Davis has his hands in everything, like a little bit of everything. He didn't become a multimillionaire, almost billionaire by accident. But from this point of view, I think WWE just has a certain reputation among quote unquote real fight fans that will damage the UFC more than it hurts them. But from that point of view, I actually want to switch it, Brandon. I want to ask you this question before we move on to different topics. We know one thing that WWE does better than anybody is reach global audiences. We know, like with Saudi Arabia and some of the show they did in India and some of the shows they do on tours when they go to Japan and the UK, and we just saw Clash of the Castle and stuff like that. You know, the UFC has done shows around the world too, but they draw 17,000 at a show in England, whereas WWE packs a stadium. Does having WWE's experience as far as big events go around the world actually help the UFC as far as their future in marketing some of these events?
I mean, I just think it's just going to be cross promotion brands where you could be watching the WWE event, you might see a commercial or should I say an ad for a UFC show, and vice versa. When you're watching a UFC show, you might see an ad for a WWE event. Like I said, they're two separate things. Like I said, it's just Endeavor, and then they just own two companies. We really won't really know until I guess it really happens, but I don't think so, because you always hear Dana White says like, oh, he doesn't do stadiums because of weather and things being set up properly.
Yeah, that's never stopped WWE, because, you know, like they did the WrestleManias right here in Tampa, and it was raining the whole time.
Yep.
And they just found ways around it. They make it work. And I think I'll give you the final thought, but I think having Vince involved in a direct capacity where Dana can pick up the phone and be like, Vince, what do you think about this? Whether we love or hate Vince McMahon as far as his creativeness goes, whether he's behind the times or whatever the case people say, as far as building business, you know, over the last 30, 40 years of WWE, he's built that business into a global juggernaut. And it could only help the UFC as far as business goes. Now, they are merging them into one publicly traded company, 21.4 entertainment billion, 20.4. Wow, I can't even talk today. You got me up too early, Brandon. $21.4 billion entertainment empire. I think when they keep putting them in together, when WME Endeavor keeps putting UFC and WWE in the same sentence, I think people are going to keep talking about it. We know technically they're separate companies, but as a press release, they continue to put them together because they're merging them as far as the stock trading goes. I think when you do that, I think you start talking about the fight fixing. I think you start talking about all the other controversy that could pop up. Final thought. Are you excited by this for both brands, or does it just really mean nothing?
To me, it means nothing to me.
All right.
Because again, like you said to me, same thing when Endeavor bought UFC, they didn't change anything. They let the same people stay in charge. Same thing here. Nick Khan is still the CEO, and then everything else is all underneath him. Vince McMahon is just above, but he's just
Nick Khan's
there as a
president.
name because there's no way Dana White has to report back to Vince McMahon. To me, this stuff is just all in name for Vinnie Mac.
Yeah, Nick Khan's president and Vince is chairman of the board and a bunch of other stuff now. But yeah. So leave your thoughts. Let us know what you think about this merger, what you think about it, what it means for both companies, especially UFC. We're a mixed martial arts show, so we're kind of more concerned with that aspect of it. Maybe we'll pull out an episode of Slamtown to talk about the other side of it. But from the UFC point of view, leave a comment. Let us know what you think about that. Go ahead and change topics a little bit. Do what we do best. Last weekend, Bellator 293. Of course, Daniel James taking care of business against Marcelo Golm, Kat Zingano, and Leah McCourt. A number of other up-and-coming fighters like Luke Traynor, Lucas Brennan, Raheem Cleveland with the big win. Talk about all of that. Brandon, let's jump right into the main event. Daniel James, Marcelo Golm, third round TKO. What'd you think of that fight?
And it was a good fight. Daniel James definitely had to battle some adversity. He was getting his leg chopped off. But then came the third round. He finally woke up and just went after it. And then just like his last fight, he hit that uppercut hook combination, and it was lights out.
You don't expect all those leg kicks and all this other like technical stuff coming from a heavyweight fight sometimes. You expect them to kind of either bang or scramble on the ground, right? But yeah, Daniel James with a big win. When you look at the Bellator heavyweight division, it's not very deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got Bader, of course. Fedor just retired. But after Bader, you got Linton Vassell, Moldavsky, Mowry, now Daniel James at number 4. Of course, Tyrell Fortune, who's always – you think he's about to be the next breakout star, and then he stumbles a little bit. What do you think's next for Daniel James?
You heard him get on the mic. He asked for Ryan Bader, but I think we all know that Linton Vassell is next. So he's probably get the next title shot. So either Daniel James, I think they really probably want to try to get him on that. Was it June 16th card, which is coming up in Chicago because that's where he's from. So they maybe want to try to get him a showcase fight, a fight where he'll look good, and then boom, he could be the next person for Ryan Bader, or should I say Linton Vassell, whoever wins the title.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 other interesting names right there next to him too. Of course, Moldavsky, perennial contender, but also people forget Steve Mowry's still undefeated, 10-0, sitting there right there at number 3. I think if you're going to test yourself, you want to see where you are. I think one of those 2 guys, I think Moldavsky has a fight coming up, but I don't think Steve Mowry does. So if Steve Mowry's not injured or anything, I think that'd be a good matchup to really see, hey, is Mowry for real? Is James going to keep moving up the food chain? Because James is 15-6-1. He's had some hiccups in his career. And even this fight wasn't an easy fight. He had to come back. So, you sit there and look at that and all right, cool. I don't think you're ready for Bader yet. I think you need one more win before. It's not that he's not ready for Bader, but I think earning-wise, I think he needs another win first. But that's just me. Another tough performance from Marcelo Golm, but on the losing end of that one. Now, this is the fight I really want to talk to you about, Brandon. Your girl, Kat Zingano, got the unanimous decision over Leah McCourt. I'm going to tell you right now, I had Leah winning that fight. I don't know what the hell the one judge that had it 30-27 was thinking. How did you score that fight?
I had it for Kat Zingano, 2-1. The thing was, man, this really was a scramble fest over here, and you don't want to scramble with Kat Zingano. She has that wrestling background. So I'm saying like Leah McCourt would get good positions, but the thing was she wasn't heavy enough, and then Kat Zingano was able to just reverse her, and then she would end up on top. And to me, that's really what gave Zingano the win.
I can see that. I think a lot of times those scrambles, Leah did come out on top. You're right. She didn't hold the position forever, but I think a lot of times she would come out on top. She would get back up. I think a lot of things go into it when you see somebody busted open, like in the third round with that knee. I think that swung things for Kat's favor, even though I think Leah actually won that third round. Because you're looking at, like, out of 5 minutes of action, if one fighter's controlling 3.5, almost 4 minutes of that action, but one other fighter reverses the position and lands a knee, does that steal a whole entire round? And I think that's always a question when you're judging not just MMA, but combat sports in general. I don't mind that Kat got the decision. I did pick Leah McCourt 29-28 personally. I thought basically the second and third round I thought were Leah. But, I understand that, like, I can see the decision. I can't understand the judge giving it 30-27. Like, you at least had to give Leah one of those rounds. I know they were a lot razor close, but did you at least give Leah one of the rounds?
Yeah, like I said, I had it 2 rounds to 1. Like I said, it was like I said, to me, it just came down. It came down to the scrambles and everything. But again, man, Kat Zingano, got the W, and let's see what's next for her.
Well, based on the last subject we just talked about, this fight was fixed to set up the next fight. But I got to be honest. I think Kat is ducking Cyborg. I think everything we've seen over the last 6 months, when the fight was offered to Kat multiple times, Kat would either accept and pull out or just like say, I'm not ready for it yet. And then after this fight, she's talking about, oh, well, I think the belt might be vacant, so I want to fight for the vacant belt. Well, yes, Cyborg is technically still a free agent because she wants to do a couple boxing things before she signs back with Bellator to continue competing. But both Scott Coker and Cyborg have said it's just a matter of signing the next contract when it's time. I don't think Kat Zingano wants that Cyborg fight. What do you think?
I mean, whenever it happens, it happens. Like I'm saying, she really is the only really like number one contender for it. So I mean, just whenever they decide to have Cyborg comes back and she'll fight for it. But hopefully it'll be soon because, like I say, Kat Zingano is up there. I think she is 41 years old. Just like Holly Holm. So I'm sure
there's a lot of aging women up there too. Arlene Blankow, Sinead Kavanaugh, all the top ranked featherweights in the division. Chris Cyborg's up there. None of these women are getting any younger. And honestly, I think Leah McCourt might have been the youngest out of all of the top 5. Sarah Collins is now number 5, who's 4-0. But honestly, I've only seen Sarah fight one time. You got Pam Sorensen, another fighter who's been fighting for a long time. So that women's featherweight division in Bellator, which used to be considered pretty strong, it needs fresh blood. And a lot of that fresh blood is going to PFL right now for that tournament format and stuff like that. So I think that's a really tough situation for Bellator. I think it's pretty much been on the back of Cyborg the entire time. And if Kat wants that title, I think she has to go through Cyborg. And I don't think she wants that fight. I think she's going to keep finding ways to avoid that fight. That's what we've seen in the last 6 months. It's always something. And you give a fighter a benefit of the doubt. You give anybody the benefit of the doubt once, twice. But it's been like 3 or 4 times, and she just keeps running. And I think it's funny that Cyborg keeps trolling her on Twitter. She keeps like throwing all these shots at her. And Kat's just she's not coming back at her. She didn't want to mention her name. So also on that card, John Salter got a win. Just dominant performance against Aaron Jeffrey. Luke Traynor, rear naked choke in the first round over Colley. Rakeem Cleveland, standing guillotine over Christian Edwards in the third round. I continue to smile every time Christian Edwards loses a fight. If people have watched the show for a while, I know that Christian kind of danced around an interview with me a while back. Kept rescheduling, never actually showed up for any of them. So I don't root against him, Brandon, but it does smile a little bit when he kind of has a downfall. Mm-hmm. They hyped him up so much as the next big, like next John Jones, right? Well, not so much anymore. Mike Hamill with the win over Nick Brown, TKO in the first round. Adam Piccolotti with a big submission win over Nalo in the third round. Sarah Collins over Pam Sorensen. We were talking about that. It's the first time I've seen Sarah fight. She did look fantastic. Got the armbar in the first round. Creighton over Davis, split decision. Lucas Brennan with the big submission win over San Diego. Tokov with the win over Lance Gibson Jr. by knockout in the first round. I want to get your thoughts on that one because I know you're a big Lance Gibson fan. Randy Field over Ashley Cummins, and then Meredith over Carrillo submission, and then Mackenzie Stiller over Maria Henderson. Of course, we'll talk about Maria a little bit later by armbar. What did you think about Tokov getting that big win over Gibson?
Yeah, no, man. I knew this was a tough fight for Gibson because, like I said, Tokov, his brother had just recently fought for the middleweight title. So like I said, I knew that he had hands full, and yeah, man, he just came forward. Tokov stepped back, caught him with a jab. Yeah, it was a jab, it wasn't even a hook. It was a jab, and he just ran into it, and boom, he was out. That was it.
Momentum, right? Jumping into the punch. Man, I mean, it was a tough test for Gibson. We knew he'd been running through people, and you put a test for him, he failed it. Anybody can get caught, but that's a bad loss getting knocked out in the first round. So it's going to be something for Gibson to have to bounce back from. We know he has a lot of potential. And then we talked about Benson. We'll talk about it in a little bit, retiring so he can focus on Maria, but then Maria loses. What did you think of that fight?
Yeah, I mean, there was really not much to it. I mean, she really kind of got controlled. She got caught with I believe was it the armbar in the first round?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was just domination. Like I know her.
It was a one-sided scramble.
Yeah, I'm saying I know her opponent was making her debut, but she looked good. She looked sharp. She looked on point.
And any other highlights on that card?
I mean, I really want to just say, like, to me, I mean, shout outs to Luke Salter, another MMA retirement, a tough guy. He was really up there at 185. I think he only really lost to people that were champions, So I mean, shout outs to him and his post career. And then also too, to me, man, it seemed like Bellator might be making a move into the women's strawweight division because I said the first fight with Henderson that was a strawweight fight, and then the fight with Ashley Cummins that was supposed to be at 115 because that's usually what Ashley Cummins fights at, but I think she wasn't making weight, so that's when they changed it to a 120 fight. So it seems like I know we talk about Bellator with the women's 145. They might be seeing how 145 is going for them, and they might be trying to add the 115 now for them.
I mean, let's be real. 125, the women's flyweight division is probably their most exciting division. You got Carmouche getting ready to fight Deanna Bennett. You got Velasquez and Watanabe and McFarlane and all those names like Kish and all those in the flyweight division. The women's flyweight division is one of the most exciting. So adding some of these lighter weight classes is only going to add to their women's division because a lot of these fighters, especially Invicta, they're not fighting at 145. They're fighting 135 because that's obviously the UFC's main division. They're fighting at 125. Atom weight's another big thing for them. So any of these lighter divisions, if they pick up some of those fighters, is going to be good for the promotion.
Yep.
And then once again, shout out to Rakeem Cleveland. That guillotine in the third round was nice. Standing guillotine. What we call Christian Edwards kind of coming in. That was nice. Rakeem Cleveland's another dude, always super tough. You never want to stand across him. He's not a contender, but he's always able to put you out. So shout out to Rakeem Cleveland. Real quick, before we move on to Benson Henderson, I do want to shout out to PFL. They had their season debut. Brendan Loughney and basically destroyed Marlon Moraes with leg kicks. Kind of what he does, but I mean, at this point, I'd really like to see Marlon retire. He's just been on the losing end way too often. Rob Wilkinson over Thiago Santos. Upset with Jocko losing a split decision. Khabibulaev is back from injury, looking fantastic. And Bubba Jenkins over Chris Wade was a pay-per-view quality fight, and Bubba Jenkins made it look easy. So definitely a difference from last year. Great start to PFL. Of course, we're only talking about one card each week this week, so we chose Bellator, but PFL definitely put on the show. So shout out to them. Of course, they'll be in action again next week for number 2, but we will be talking about UFC 287. Brandon, I want to finish this show with something you talked about last week. Talked about Benson Henderson retiring. Talked about kind of giving him his flowers. The dude's 39 years old, giving his sport. He actually originally said, I think he was going to retire by 30. Ended up fighting to almost 40, another almost 10 years in Bellator. People don't understand how long he's actually been in Bellator after leaving the UFC. But here's a guy I don't think has ever gotten the proper due respect. And I'd really like to get your opinion on where he ranks all time, because he is a former WEC champion. He is a former UFC lightweight champion. Not to mention being in battles, Frankie Edgar, a number of other great fighters, coming over to Bellator and kind of reigniting his career and fighting in multiple divisions from 155 to 170. Brandon, when you look at the whole, I want to ask you two questions, a two-part question. One, what is the one fight that kind of stands out to you is like, all right, this is the Benson Henderson fight that I will always remember? And two, when you rank him among the elites from both 155, and I guess you have to throw 170 the way he ended his career, where do you put him in those rankings?
Benson Henderson is definitely a Hall of Famer. Like I said, you already listed his accolades. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. But to me, I want to say Benson Henderson's probably best maybe fight could have been him versus Nate Diaz when he defended his belt against Nate Diaz. I mean, he just beat the brakes off of Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz had nothing, beat up his legs, and he just took care of business. Like that probably was like probably the best Benson Henderson in the UFC. Or his fight where I think it was the fight on Fox that you didn't see because it was on the prelims because they only showed one fight on Fox. Well, I think it was him versus Clay Guida, I believe.
Yeah, the title eliminator with Clay Guida on the Velasquez de Santos card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that those two fights right there.
Now, one thing, well, first of all, the fight I'll always remember more than any of them is that first Cerrone fight. Go all the way back to WEC 43. It was for the interim title at the time because I think Jamie Varner was hurt.
Yep.
And they fought a few times, but the first time they fought was a war. Like, you're talking about one of those, like, as a fan, you get your popcorn, like, all right, well. Mm-hmm. And Benson Henderson was beating Cerrone. Here's a guy, Donald Cerrone at the time was unstoppable. He was head kicking everybody. He was knocking everyone out. Benson Henderson took his best shots, gave it right back, wrestled him, shined every which way, every angle. And Benson Henderson really to that day became a star. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that first Cerrone fight really made him a star. It was a 5-round decision down in San Antonio at WEC 43 for the interim title. And I think that made him a star. Of course, he would go on to beat Jamie Varner and then dominate Cerrone the second time before we all remember the Showtime kick and Anthony Pettis, which was unfortunately the last memory of WEC because then they became part of UFC in that division. But then he come to the UFC and he had a little bit of a run, got the title, a couple of very close fights with Frankie Edgar that people will always remember. Anthony Pettis seemed to always be like the thorn in his side. Of course, Cerrone would eventually get the win in the third fight. And he had an up and down career. You know, he beat Masvidal, who's obviously a contender. He beat Josh Thompson in the UFC. He moved over to Bellator, had some tough fights against, Chandler and Pitbull and some other guys. Jason Jackson was another guy who gave him problems. But then, he had a couple of late wins before he fell to Nurmagomedov. Overall, I think people will look, 30-12, But like I said, the accolades speak for themselves. WEC lightweight champion. UFC lightweight champion. And I don't think he ever got the respect he deserved at UFC lightweight champion because people always thought Frankie Edgar won one of those fights or both of those fights based on MMA judging. But he did win those razor close fights. And you look back at those fights now, you can see how he won those fights. I think it's one of those ones you have to watch a couple times. But yeah, I think both of them were actually good decisions. I said it at the time. I've always been a big fan of Smooth Benson Henderson. I think it's funny. He told a story the other day where he actually swallowed a couple of the toothpicks because he'd sneak them in his mouth. And I agree with you, Brandon. I think most definitely he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The UFC, unfortunately, we're talking about WWE, much like that, control their own Hall of Fame. But we've seen Dana put in Tito Ortiz. We've seen Dana put in some other people. I think it's one of those things where you probably need to have a more universal Hall of Fame for a legitimate sport, the way boxing does. it shouldn't just be the UFC Hall of Fame or the Bellator Hall of Fame, because we're talking about mixed martial arts. It's a sport. Boxing has a Hall of Fame where all the commissions get together and they vote and they put in their people. It's obviously politicized just like anything, but it is a universal Hall of Fame. And I think when it comes to MMA, I think we need one of those as well. I think you need to put UFC people like Royce Gracie and Frank Shamrock. We talked about offline, Frank Shamrock deserving when we were talking about other people that are missing from the UFC Hall of Fame. But Royce Gracie, Ken Shamrock, Dan Severn, a lot of those original guys. But I also think you need to be people that have jumped promotions, right? Ryan Bader is going to eventually be worthy because of all his titles he's won in Bellator. Royce Gracie famously even popped up in Bellator to fight Ken Shamrock again. A disgraceful fight, but it happened. So, yeah, I agree with you. Final thoughts on Benson Henderson's career?
Yeah, no, like I said, man, he's a Hall of Famer. You know, he was in a lot of close fights, you know, when he was champion, but he won those fights. So you can't knock him for that. You know, he got the W's.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our show this week. Of course, head over to fightersfirst.shop, get the Mechanic Collection, get the Art of MMA Collection, support the brand, support the show. Let our apparel be a part of your story. Of course, officially licensed collections from both boxing, MMA, and the world of professional wrestling, which we were talking about today as well. Brandon, anything you want to mention before we get out of here, where they can find you, all that good stuff? And are we going to have any fight news soon?
Yeah, man, fight news coming soon. I mean, it really.
I know you hinted it out on social media.
Contract is signed. I'm getting tickets. I'm just waiting for the poster just to come out. That's all. But yeah, man, just save the date, guys. May 20th. I'll be stepping back in the ring. Me and Zach Kelly, we're gonna run it back. Down in Delaware. So there it is. There's your fight news for you. May 20th. Same night as freaking Eller and everything like that. So yeah. So like I said, save the date. You'll be able to watch it on FCLTV.com if you're not gonna be in the area. And yeah, that's it. And like I said, Coach, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at BCatino_TSMA.
Follow the man, support the brand. Of course, get the Mechanic Collection. Fightersfirst.shop. Brandon, that is our episode today. Of course, next week, UFC 287 down in Miami. A lot to talk about with that. Of course, Adesanya Pereira. What is it, 4 now? 5?
Yep. Basically 4. Yep. 2 in kickboxing, 2 in MMA.
2 and 2. And of course, Masvidal Burns, another big title eliminator fight that I'm sure will stir up a lot of heat down in Miami. A lot of other great fights on that card. So we'll look forward to talking about that next week. For the Mechanic, Brandon Catino, I am Mike Ginn. This is Art of MMA episode 105. We're out.